elderly with a whole bevy of like medications for all sorts of things. I mean, how many people have like huge stacks of stuff that they're taking? All right. So in terms of sickness, we don't do what animals do. We don't rest. We don't take a well day off work. You know, we stay wired, and then we crash, and then we need medication. So sickness we don't do very well. Old age, we pretty much stick that behind closed doors as well. You know, old people are somewhere else. There's very, very little concept of elders that we have. We don't really look to the wisdom because the technology, if we're only relying on technology, technology changes so fast. I feel completely inept in relation to the new things that are happening that my son can do on a computer. And it's very interesting if you think of some of the ways in which a lot of the computer games, as well as some of the original Japanimation, which so many children are raised on in terms of watching TV. You know, you think of Pokemon, and you think of a lot of the Japanimation series. Even to some extent, the Harry Potter series, where parents are inept. Parents don't know what's going on. Therefore, we have to do it ourselves. We have to lie to our parents because we couldn't tell our parents what we're really doing because we're out there saving the world. Because they don't know how to. Right? So in that way, what we're looking at, and this is, this issue of separation of generations, separation of wisdom in terms of just, how do you cope with the challenges of not knowing what to do. It's very fascinating, the fact that at this point, we modulate our moods, and that in terms of technology, it's interesting, a lot of the games the kids watch usually have cheats that they can get online. Okay? No child really has to solve a problem in terms of this technological education. You can go online and find a solution. So can you live in the enigma of not knowing? Can you live in that? Can you cope with that? And we're losing that coping skill of being able to handle what we can't solve instantly. And therefore the wisdom of generations is pointless. And then death. We all know we don't do death very well. I would say mostly what happens in our Western traditions is we do bereavement really well. We can wring our hands and be very empathic for people that have, have lost someone. But in terms of really being able to face and work with the energetics of dying, we can't do that. We really don't do that very well. And we put it behind closed doors as well. So birth, sickness, old age, and death don't exist. And we've destroyed the connection between generations. Which is actually, in terms of one of the teachers, his name was Tenzin Wangyal Rinpoche, was talking that if we were really looking at some of the dilemmas of this time period, and the notion of what's called a dark age, which we'll talk about a little bit later, what he said was that sickness, poverty, and warfare, which are oftentimes referred to in Buddhist prayers of, may sickness, poverty, and warfare subside wherever we may be. That's the desire. That's the wish. That really, those things have been around all the time. But one of the things that has not been around in civilization up to this point is the separation between generations and the way in which generations don't care for each other. He says that is unique. When he began to teach in the United States, and he would try and give an example of unconditional love, and he would mention the idea of unconditionally loving like a mother. In interviews afterwards, because as a meditation teacher, we had interviews with various students. Students would come and say, well, you talk about unconditional love, but I have so many issues with my mother. I can't talk to her. I couldn't come away from this meditation course and really call her up. I couldn't do that. And he saw that more and more there was all this conflict, and parents said that, they'd been estranged from their kids, And he said, this is a unique thing where we've actually lost that biological connection, which is essentially a disconnection with our natural environment. It's a real symptom of that. He says that's the thing that really needs to be worked on more than anything, is establishing connections between the generations. So you have this impermanence, which is really important to appreciate. That whatever your positive qualities are, whatever your negative qualities are, it's all going to go in the blink of an eye. We could be having this Dharma discussion, this conversation about, wisdom of masters, and, an errant plane not finding its way properly over to Heathrow just plows into this house and takes us all out. And this is the last time you're ever going to see anybody else, and we're just going to be looking at each other going, oh my goodness. And that's going to be it. It's possible. Okay?
Potentially.
Eventually it's going to happen, but it could happen right now. Yeah. Potentially, yeah. And it was very interesting. In the book, I interviewed a man by the name of Geshe Michael Roach. Geshe Michael is a really wonderful teacher, and he once was talking with these about what is it that gets you. He was talking in Ireland. He says, what gets you from wherever they were to Dublin? Is it your car? Is it the petrol in your car? Is it the road? Or is it your karma? Okay? Because all those external conditions are there, but you could be run over. Your car could be wrecked. You could slide off the road. There's all sorts of possibilities. So if you get between here and there, it's just your karma. That's what's really running the show. It doesn't matter if your car's got gas in it or petrol in it. It doesn't really matter. Whether you make it or not has to do with what's unraveling in your life. And it's all has to do with the third truth. What you sow, so shall you reap. You are living out your karma. Who you have been in your past life is reflected in your current life. People go, a lot of Tibetan teachers have been asked, oh, please tell me who I was in my past life. And this one teacher, her name is Khandro Rinpoche, said, basically who you were doesn't really matter, because who you were has brought you to where you are right now, and who you are going to be in the future is going to be determined by what you do now with what you have right now. That's what matters. So if you feel like a victim in your life and you feel horrid, and you feel like blaming everybody, then that is going to be the energy that you take into your future life, possibly your next lifetime. Why are people not born as blank slates? They're not. If you've had if you've had more than one child, and you think, gosh, it's the same parents, the same house, all the stuff, and one child and then the other child's like, how did that happen? Of course, it's a genetic makeup between the two parents. Circumstances do change, but there is this added feature of what someone brings in to this life. So, the third point is that your life may be precious. It can be precious. You need to appreciate what you have. It's all going to go away. and in terms of whether it stays or whether it leaves or whether it's going to transforms, has to do with you making